Dr. Emmanuel Manny Hostin, an orthopedic surgeon and husband of The View co-host Sonny Hostin, is accused in December lawsuit fraudulently billing insurance. By the way, this is a Daily Caller story I'm reading. The lawsuit alleges Hostin knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services in exchange for kickbacks and or compensation, and names him among nearly 200 defendants in one of New York's largest RICO cases.
For more, we go to our chief Sonny Hostin correspondent for a reaction.
Sonny Hostin thought her day couldn't get any worse until Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus stormed in like comedic wrecking balls with flamethrowers made of sarcasm. Her husband's $450 million 0-cents court scandal? That was just the appetizer. What came next was a full-blown roast, so brutal it could have melted steel. Tyrus went for the jugular. Gutfeld didn't blink once. And Sonny, her silence was so chilling it could have won an Oscar for Best Frozen Face in a Meltdown. But what twisted detail sent this media firestorm into overdrive? The courtroom chaos ran deeper than anyone expected, and the fallout? Absolutely seismic.
Only about 31% of Americans trust our healthcare system. We have a terrible healthcare system, and you know, doctors suffer because of big corporations as well. Doctors that want to do good, like my husband, you know, operates on someone even though they don't have insurance, and then has to sue health insurance companies to get paid for the work that he's been trained his whole life to do.
And it is funny. She is so wrapped up in identity, and she had no idea who she was.
For years, Sonny Hostin strutted across the stage of The View like she was the Supreme Court in heels, gavel in one hand, moral high ground in the other. She didn't just offer opinions, she delivered verdicts. One misstep, and you'd be exiled from brunch like a criminal. But this week, karma served her a steaming plate of irony. The queen of courtroom commentary suddenly became the star of her own scandal, a jaw-dropping $450 million 0-cents legal catastrophe, featuring none other than her own husband.
Or man that will go after white America and talk about them like dogs. That doesn't represent our ideals or values for anyone. And get rid of those people, and this will clear up real quick. So do you have to actually look in the mirror and clean up your own backyard and get the racist people out? Because that's who you allowed in. You allowed black racist on TV who could just go all day and say anything about white people. And I guess lo and behold, they forgot that there's a lot of people at home, white people at home during the day that are not watching your show anymore. So just clean it up.
Yeah, you know, Emily.
3, cue the irony, cue the popcorn, and cue Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus revving their sarcasm engines like they were about to roast the gods themselves. For years, Sonny made a career out of getting offended on demand. Gasps, outrage, dramatic pauses, all crafted to keep her perched on a mountain of moral superiority. But now, with her husband allegedly tangled in a financial disaster so massive it makes FTX look like a bake sale, suddenly she's all about privacy and due process. Imagine that. The woman who threw daggers over every Republican misstep now wants everyone to mind their business.
Hostin's obsession with race gets thrown back in her face. Today's video comes to us from Sonny Hostin. Sounds like a town. We're in Sonny Hostin. She was on PBS's Finding Your Roots, a show dedicated to researching celebrity ancestry. For context, Sonny is a staunch supporter of reparations and has made a fortune spewing nonsense about white privilege and racial justice. Well, turns out she's not as oppressed as she claims she is. She's actually the descendant of slave owners from Europe.
When it's someone else in the hot seat, Sonny's all fire and fury, casting judgment with smug precision. But when her own husband is the one under fire, nothing but crickets. The loudest legal commentator on The View has suddenly discovered the sweet, sweet silence of self-preservation. Bravo! Enter Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus, 2 men armed with enough sarcasm to knock out a power grid, and they didn't hesitate to sink their teeth into this delicious hypocrisy sandwich, served sizzling and extra salty.
Makes Sonny Hostin, who thinks climate change caused the solar eclipse, the dumbest of them all. Because everyone knows the moon caused the eclipse, which is controlled by the View's gravitational pull.
The timing was almost too perfect. Greg Gutfeld, master of media takedowns, practically threw a celebration live on air, and Tyrus, he might as well have shown up with a bag of marshmallows to roast over the smoldering remains of Sonny's credibility. Let's dive into this $450 million 0-cents scandal, shall we? Reports are swirling and social media's ablaze. Sunny's husband is allegedly knee-deep in a courtroom disaster so colossal, it makes Enron look like a typo. Financial mismanagement, possible fraud, the list is longer than a View segment on Trump. But Sunny? Suddenly she's got nothing to say. It's like someone unplugged her legal fire and replaced it with static. This isn't just massive, it's hilariously ironic. The same woman who once dissected political lawsuits like a hawk spotting roadkill is now waving the flag of no comment. Gutfeld didn't waste a breath. His segment turned into a blazing roast session, and the hypocrisy was the punchline.
Their brains are small. But who's the dumbest one of all? True, none of them are in Mensa, but who's the most densa? Perhaps it's Sunny who mastered the art of making idiots look smart. Now, The View could ask a mirror who's the dumbest one of all, but there's no way that glass doesn't shatter. So instead...
Here's the gist. If hypocrisy were an Olympic sport, Sunny just took home the gold. Gutfeld tore into the double standard with the glee of a kid unwrapping chaos on Christmas morning. And in the background, you could almost hear Tyrus sharpening his verbal machete. And when he swung, it landed hard. Tyrus, never one to pull a punch, unleashed zingers with the confidence of someone who's binge-watched too much daytime drama and finally snapped. He didn't just spotlight the scandal. He ripped open the smugness, the righteousness, and the paper-thin credibility that collapsed with it. When the queen of condescension drops her crown in a scandal this explosive, you better believe Tyrus is there with a pillow to catch it, only so he can toss it in the fire. And let's not forget the rest of the Viewcast. Those champions of progressive outrage turned into a mute choir overnight? Joy Behar looked haunted. Whoopi Goldberg barely twitched. The same women who once launched a full-scale meltdown over a conservative mispronouncing a word suddenly forgot how to speak. Their silence? Deafening.
Sure, all that, and the price of butter. Sunny gets the game ball. If it wasn't for her, if it wasn't for her asking that question, it might have been a closer election. Listen, they're bitter, they're angry, they're entitled. They also should be. This should have been a reset for everyone who pushed lies and misinformation for the last. They call them Hitler. They call these things. America rejected them, and instead of coming back and saying we lied, they instead are now doubling down. So let her keep doing it, because if she keeps that up, we're going to keep getting the Senate and probably the House and the White House, because people see right through your lies. So keep doing what you're doing. Game ball to Sunny.
But a $450 million 0-cent scandal involving one of their own? Suddenly it's all about context and nuance. How convenient. Meanwhile, social media caught fire like a match dropped in gasoline. Memes exploded. Twitter didn't just roast Sunny, it flambéed her. Greg Gutfeld, always ready to strike, seized the moment to tackle a bigger beast. Media elitism, the kind where public figures shout accountability, but only when it doesn't apply to them. The moral high ground only works when you're the one standing tall, not when it's crumbling under your own feet. With classic deadpan, Gutfeld called out The View for its sudden case of selective laryngitis. Truth and transparency, please? And Tyrus? He followed up with a scorching rant so dry it could cause a drought. He mocked the absurdity of Sunny handing out legal advice while allegedly crafting carefully worded statements to explain away her husband's financial fiasco, her moral compass. It's spinning like a roulette wheel in a thunderstorm.
End of time. You're right. Anytime she says something stupid, I'm going to go, slave owner! Kat, I just watched that. That's the second time I've watched that. She was tipped off beforehand, right? Because they had to tell her before, so she had time to regroup. They wouldn't just surprise. Really? You think? No?
I don't know. I feel like she could have maybe done better. Okay, here's the thing. One thing, and I would have even actually not give her any is she said, well, I guess that's just what they did back then.
Yeah.
She should have followed that up with saying something along the lines of, and I understand that that's a departure from the way I've talked about this before.
And the cherry on top? The View acted like it never happened. Not even a whisper, not a segment, not a sentence. They can spend 20 minutes analyzing Taylor Swift's exes, but when it comes to the $450 million 0-cent scandal stampeding through Sunny's life, silence. Maybe they're being classy. Or maybe they're just plain scared. You decide. Gutfeld wrapped up his segment with a poetic jab that could go down in TV history. He wondered, ever so innocently, if Sunny might like to swing by his show and share her thoughts on accountability. The invite was soaked in sarcasm and shaded enough to block out the sun. And Tyrus? He leaned in, stared right into the camera, and gave a signature smirk that screamed, "Told you so." But here's the twist. This isn't just about Sunny. This entire scandal is a mirror reflecting the hypocrisy infecting mainstream media. These hosts preach like prophets until someone shines a light on their own skeletons. Then it's not justice, it's theater. They quote laws like gospel until it turns out their own commandments are scribbled on napkins.
It's not even that. In The View, you don't need to find Trumpers. You need to fire your race baiters.
Yeah.
You need to fire the two races. You've had people. You had a McCain on there. You've had people on there before, and you ran them off. So the racist ones who want to stick to this, Whoopi and Sunny, and the, was it Bette Midler? What's her name? Yeah, broke-ass Bette Midler. Fire them and bring people in. Maybe you could get McCain to come back.
Sunny's defenders rushed in, shouting she shouldn't be judged for her husband's actions. Sure, that sounds fair on paper, but this is the same woman who spent years dissecting the families of political rivals like she was auditioning for CSI Smug Edition. Now she wants grace? That's not a double standard. That's a double-decker hypocrisy sandwich with extra denial on the side. And the fallout? Just getting started, more details are bound to spill out. And Sunny may have to do more than pout during commercial breaks. Maybe a carefully worded public statement. Maybe a mysterious sabbatical, or maybe just perfecting her resting smug face. But one thing's for sure. Her credibility didn't just take a hit, it got obliterated. And let's be honest, The View was never exactly a temple of journalistic excellence. But this scandal ripped off whatever curtain was left and exposed a group of panelists scrambling to protect their own, like a full-blown daytime mafia. Expecting self-awareness? Forget it. These women could trip over their own contradictions and still blame conservatives. The idea of them reflecting, admitting fault, or laughing at their absurdity is as likely as Sunny turning in her husband's bail paperwork on live TV.
That's not what I read. The true sign of the apocalypse is someone that dumb has a law degree. Worse, if your name has the word sun in it, there's no excuse for not knowing how an eclipse works. But it's no surprise that Joy is the one who understands science. She's been on the science diet for years.
If The View had a mute button for scandals, Sunny Hostin slammed it like her reputation depended on it. Because this time, it absolutely did. The queen of legal lectures, smug interruptions, and courtroom cosplay suddenly chose the sound of silence. The same woman who could rant for 10 minutes over a squirrel sneezing on Capitol Hill now couldn't string together a single sentence about a $450 million, 0-cents courtroom catastrophe starring her own husband. Coincidence? Sure. And maybe Pigs just launched a tech startup. Gone were her self-righteous rants. Gone were the legal buzzwords nobody asked for. Sunny, the ever-so-passionate justice warrior, had transformed into a human screensaver. Viewers sat in disbelief as she blinked slowly, shuffled her note cards like they were evidence in a plea bargain, and gave the performance of a defense attorney trapped in a silent movie. Every awkward glance, every nervous sip from that oversized mug, every fidget screamed, "Please don't ask me about the felon-shaped elephant pirouetting through this segment." Her body language? Full courtroom mime. Arms crossed like a tax loophole, shoulders stiff enough to slice cheese. One minute she's nodding like a bobblehead at a law seminar. The next she's staring into space like the ceiling tiles held the answer to her legal crisis.
She is shaming descendants of this. Will she continue to do that when she is now one of them, Dana? And it is funny. She is so wrapped up in identity and she had no idea who she was.
Well, now we understand why she always makes Whoopi get the coffee.
Somewhere between Whoopi's eye rolls and Joy's rambling detours, Sunny sat frozen, like someone had just projected her husband's bail terms onto her cue cards. And the best part? Every time a topic even hinted at corruption, fraud, or public disgrace, Sunny developed a sudden fascination with the floor. Her expression screamed one thing: "Get me out of here!" She looked like she was trying to disappear using sheer willpower, and spoiler alert, it didn't work. Viewers saw it, Twitter lit up like a bonfire, and Greg Gutfeld? He saw every twitch. And you know Gutfeld doesn't blink. Normally, Sunny would hijack a conversation with "actually, that's not how due process works." But now, the only thing she's defending is her poker face. Oops, turns out due process is knocking at her own front door, and this time it's not theoretical, it's courtroom official. The woman who used to dominate every debate with high-volume outrage now sat motionless, sipping from that massive mug like it was filled with invisibility potion. The audience was glued, waiting for her to finally burst and shout objections, maybe even at her own reflection. But the silence, it wasn't calm. It was panic in slow motion.
Anna went in a different direction. But I love the fact that, Manny is younger and he's
How
very...
much younger is he?
Just a little bit.
He's like 1 year, isn't he?
Like a month or a year or 10 years? Or
5 years.
It's more than a year.
Oh.
Anyway, it's not about me. I think.
Oh, no.
I think that it's very helpful that he's handy, and when we travel, I'm not picking up any bags. He's the one that's hefting them overhead. He
Exactly.
throws the garbage out.
Right.
He does the heavy stuff.
Sorry, Sunny, but you can't cross-examine karma. And while she hid behind her coffee mug, Greg Gutfeld and Tyrus gave America the guilty pleasure it didn't know it was craving. In a world where double standards dominate and sanctimony is sold like soap, watching one of the loudest voices fall flat was more than just satisfying. It was therapeutic. Will Sunny recover? Probably. The View has a soft spot for scandals, as long as they come from the right side. She might even rebrand this circus as a growth moment and slap together a TED Talk titled "When Justice Hits Too Close to Home." Until then, the memes will keep flowing, the internet won't stop laughing. And Gutfeld and Tyrus, they'll keep circling this hypocrisy train wreck like vultures with punchlines. Because when you spend your career handing out moral verdicts, it's only a matter of time before the gavel swings back. And in Sunny's case, it knocked the smug straight off her highlight reel. So next time The View starts preaching another televised sermon, just remember, even the loudest voices can choke on their own scripts, especially when Gutfeld and Tyrus are holding the receipts and the mic.